We're so glad to see you all here this morning. It's a fantastic turnout.
What do we actually mean by a sustainable event? Just making sure the choices we're making are in fact contributing to reduction and a better impact. Because that's where a lot of touch points with various people become an opportunity not to just learn, but also start sharing some of the lessons learned and the benefits and expand and amplify those messages. First is thinking about where you have control and where you have influence. And second, how do we actually take the control and influence as levers, and how do we influence human behaviors to then start implementing any of the changes? Nobody intentionally wants to harm anyone or anything, right? So nobody intentionally wants to be unsustainable or wants to create any kind of damage. So I'd like to introduce the ladder of interventions to you. And that's basically one way of looking at what kind of interventions can we actually then utilize to help people get on their journey and start making decisions across the entire value chain. And people want to do fun stuff, not just score points, but they also want to enjoy it.
I'm going to talk about equity, diversity, and inclusion. And it's one of these topics, I was speaking to a colleague earlier on, that people feel uncomfortable about, despite the fact that it impacts every single one of us. We are unique. Have you considered everyone? People are, they're worried that they're going to offend someone. But the reality is that the more you communicate, the more you think, the more you learn about individuals, the easier it will be to ensure that your events or any activity that you do really does relate to everyone. Ensuring that your events are inclusive and that you are taking ED&I into account is not a tick box exercise. It's not a one-off. I mentioned before best practice. It should weave through everything that you do. Who's going to be there? What measures can we take? Intersectionality is an important aspect to consider. This slide is quite a powerful slide. When you are talking about how you think about your events and what you're doing and for your events, you should really just think back to this. There's value in having other perspectives, but it needs to be balanced. Don't be afraid of feedback. Every event you should evaluate.
One sentence particularly resonated with me, and I'll just read it back. It's from the slides, but I thought if there's one that we take away from that presentation, it might be this. And equality, diversity, inclusion, and accessibility in all aspects is the right thing to do and requires no further justification. It's pretty simple.
I think one of the first things that you do is take stock of where you are along that journey. And what does inclusive mean?
What does good look like? Well, good looks like when we have learned something, we have made a change from the previous event, and we've started a conversation with our suppliers.
I think someone mentioned budgets. And I think, especially from where I'm coming from, where we work with associations and voluntary committees that come together to deliver this one event in their destination. They haven't got previous experience. They've just got the budget in front of them. It all comes down to the bottom line. Comes back to having open conversations as well with your clients and your committees.
5 people came up to me and mentioned the various things, so I'm doing something right.
If you're measuring, ideally, what are you doing now and what are you going to change? And what's the impact of that?
I guess it's a partnership, really. And I think it's about, I think if we have this conversation in 3, 5, 10 years' time, many of the things that we're talking about now will just be commonplace. Finding venues that you want to work with, who match the objectives of your own organisation.